excuse me. Hello, Dana. Just finished watching your, what is it, the CC12 with the coaching. And awesome job. I love how you talked about coaching the motor and supporting the motor, and remember to always say we're not testing spelling skills or comprehension, it's just building these pathways, which I think you mentioned. Always mention that kind of apraxia, the brain-body disconnect, and that's when you can also, bring up talking about, because they have that disconnect, what seems to be very simple motor task or movements, you can break it down. I always use the example of something as simple as like, oh, I want to pick up that pencil. You're just going to pick it up. But when you think about it with an apraxic body, first they need to think like, okay, I want the pencil, make a plan. Then they need to turn their head, get their eyes on it, tell their arm to lift up, reach their arm out, open their hands, close their fingers, lift it up, pull it back, whatever. So I always break it down that there's so many motor steps that, we don't think about. You did really great at your explanation of prompts. I always say the continuation helps him stay focused and keep regulated and add a nice flow. Again, mention how they're just supporting his motor. I like how you mentioned that they're all going to fade eventually, but just like anything else, when anyone learns to ride a bike, you need a lot of support or training wheels or coaching, and even, learning to play the piano. Any new skill or new motor, everybody needs a lot of prompts and support. Good posture, push him back far enough from the table so he has that extension. I like how you mentioned, right side of the board or right side of his body. There was a couple times though that it was more in the middle and he kind of poked with the left, so just remind her that, stick with one hand the whole time. I said good job mentioning crossing the midline, just mostly a bunch of positives. As a exercise for crossing the midline, you can always do the 2 X's on the wall and have him kind of right hand, left X, and vice versa. I loved all her questions that she had for you. Let me see, sorry. Tell her to pick and choose about 3 to 4 words with the keywords if there's a lot more capitalized, and make them, the most age appropriate possible. And while you're reading, you want to keep a nice flow, so not to do too many back to back. But again, stress that that's something that comes with more and more practice. You don't have to be such a stickler with it. But for example, I think she said names or did names for a keyword, but that's just, and it might have been capitalized, but think about the age, and you want to find words that might be newer or a little more challenging or just more age appropriate. Keywords are mostly only for the warm-up. I would print her some lessons that have the color-coded questions just so she kind of understands all that. She just wants to stick with one-word answers for a while, or can make up fill in the blanks. I wrote a question, what book is it? So I'm assuming she talked about a book, reading a book for practice. And yeah, I encourage parents to, you know, if dads are more into the newspaper or sports or whatever. I have families that read Bible verses, and I say, you know, if they feel comfortable, that they can make up questions on the fly or even before, and just those one word, and pick a few words to spell and all that. What else? Oh, the repeating, you know, when I think she mentioned something about him repeating, and that's just that echolalia and not reliable. I'm just really, really proud of all your answers you had for her. When it comes to her practicing, I tell them to aim for about 10-15 minutes every day, or even every other day, to start off for the first few weeks, and then slowly build. You know, you never want to, I always stress that it should be a fun thing, and you don't want it to feel like a chore for you or for your son or daughter. That's awesome that she wanted to record, and you can get feedback. You know, directional prompts would be very, very direct prompts. So kind of top corner, upstairs, in the middle, stuff like that. Sorry, I'm just reading these notes that I've taken over the last couple of days, but I hope it all makes sense. I would definitely, if you feel comfortable and confident with it, I didn't check your grade, but I'm sure you did awesome. You could share your knowledge video on types of prompts with her, just so she can have that to remind herself. The continuation prompts are, you know, either that elongated A then, B then, or and, or next letter, or keep going, look for it. So I also said, you know, mention that doubles are tricky for everyone, and you can always say it's a double. Again, that fades eventually. I think at one point she was like, okay, you just spelled SCEA, but just remind her that she never has to kind of say the whole word of what he spelled. Of course, you know, try and remind her and tell her that you and everyone else has gone through it, not to say no. I mean, overall, he did really, really well with him. It's really tough because I just said a lot of feedback, and I'm sure you have some too, but when the parents are just starting out, I mostly focus on, you know, get in that little bit of practice every other day, or every day if you can, and focus on these 3 things: his posture, the board placement, and like gestural prompts or something. And then say, next time I see you, I'll give you 2 or 3 things to focus on, and that should just be the main few things that you work on, because, you know, there's just endless amount of feedback, and that's how it should be. But make the goals not too crazy and feasible, so her and her son both build that confidence. I would even maybe cover half the board, see how that goes for a few words. If he's super on it, just take it off. You know, at one point she said, you can't have your toys next time, but just say, I mean, if you think it's possible, or if she thinks it's possible, you know, just explain to John Paul, like, hey, you can have this fidget, but when we spell, we're gonna do 3 words after each chunk. I want you to either hand it to mom, myself, or put it on the table, and then as soon as you're done spelling, you can pick it back up, do whatever you want. Okay, I think that's it. Sorry, that was a lot. Good job.